Marshall has stepped out for a moment, so we will turn to Senator Tuberville.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Behnam, for being here today. Thank you for your service. You know, if confirmed, rural America is going to be counting on you to be their voice. You've been on the team, now you're getting ready to be the leader. That's a huge step. You know, our nation's farmers and ranchers, they rely on the derivatives market to hedge risk to protect them from the losses of a bad year, which we've had several, especially in my state, Alabama, the last few years with the weather. You know, to speak for rural America, you got to know rural America. And our country's agriculture industry is the envy of the world, and we need to keep it that way. Your predecessor, Dr. Tarbert, went above and beyond, you know, to engage with the ag community and folks outside Washington, D.C. and Wall Street. So he set the gold standard. So you got big shoes to fill, and I hope you're able to do that. You know, what have you done in the time that you've been on CFTC, you know, in the last few years to get yourself enabled into the rural communities?
Thanks, Senator Tuberville. A great question. I fully appreciate your point about us committing as an agency to rural America. I'll tell you, I spent 6.5 years working on the Ag Committee as counsel, and I grew up in northern New Jersey. I was not very familiar with rural America and the challenges that rural Americans and agricultural producers face, but those 6 years opened my eyes. It afforded me the opportunity to travel across the Midwest, visit farms and ranches, and talk to producers and see what challenges they're facing and the challenges of our food system and why we're the envy of the world. Since becoming a commissioner, I've taken several trips across the Midwest. It was sort of put on hiatus because of the pandemic, but my goal and my sort of strategy is direct engagement. I love to travel. I love to visit folks. I love to sit down and talk to them one-on-one and hear about their issues and really relating it back and leaning on my experience of working on a farm bill and working on, you know, several pieces of legislation that deal directly with rural America and American agriculture, and having those personal relationships so that I can be more empathetic in terms of understanding the challenges that folks face that I didn't necessarily understand or appreciate growing up. So if confirmed, I'm going to continue that strategy, continue outreach. We're going to do our best as an agency-wide effort to make sure that we're engaging with producers and the entire constituency of American agriculture, and hearing their voice and hearing their challenges and taking action in a very expedient way so that, as you point out, these markets continue, as they have for the past 150 years, serving the purpose that they're fit for.
Yeah, all farmers and ranchers, they're struggling in some areas. You need to hear their voice, because I hear them every day. And I want to invite you to come down to Alabama once confirmed. During your time as acting chairman, you've tied up a lot of our agency resources looking at climate risk. You released a report last year with recommendations that were largely outside the CFTC's jurisdiction. What do you view as the agency's role when it comes to climate? Give me your definition.
We are a risk management agency, and for decades, quite frankly, we look at weather, we look at climate change, because we have to see what it means for agricultural producers, for energy providers, and I think as the climate is changing and we're seeing a more broad-based effort from the private sector to address climate change, physical impacts, and the transition risks, we as an agency need to keep up with that. We need to make sure delivery points for grains are not having challenges because of weather events. We need to make sure that flooding events in the spring is not affecting planting season or harvest. We need to look at the forest fire season out west and seeing how that's affecting the American rural economy and the sort of the fruit bowl in California. These are all issues that I think are directly related to the agency. And on the one hand, we need to support market-based solutions of innovative futures products and derivatives products that are going to help your farmers and ranchers hedge risk. On the other hand, we have to support transition, which can be anything from developing and supporting carbon markets or coming up with solutions in the interest rate space or the currency space so that investors can put money towards renewable sources of energy and other things that will help the transition, as Senator Bozeman pointed out rightfully, be smooth and not too imbalanced, because those are going to be serious challenges. So my goal is to listen, to convene, to have a conversation, and to really work in tandem with what the private sector's done and is doing so that we can be a part of the conversation and ultimately support it. Because there's the climate risk management portion, but there's also the supporting the transition. And I do think the agency can and should play an important role in both.
Yeah, one last question. So, being the leader of this group, do you foresee adding climate scientists to your staff, or do you have any now? Or, you know, people more in tune to what's going on in the climate other than, you know, what I call you guys bean counters or whatever?
We do not, Senator, we do not have any positions for a climate scientist at the agency. We are predominantly an agency of lawyers, investigators, economists, and accountants. And as I said earlier, because of the nature of our job and the relationship with production, agriculture, energy, and other commodities, we have always been in tune to weather and climate, and I think we'll just continue that going forward without having to bring on any climate scientists.
So basically, you're going to use the expert's opinion, which is what we all should do.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.